Hello, beautiful people. It's good to see you once again on this channel. Today, I'm doing a video on specific learning disorders. I have already done one on that, explaining the types that confront people. And today, I would want to delve in deeper, where I would bunch two or three of them, and then I'll talk a bit in details about them. And so for today, I want us to consider dyslexia, dyscalculia, dyspraxia, autism, ADHD, and I would add another one as time would allow us. So, dyslexia, what is it? Dyslexia is having difficulty in reading, writing, and spelling. So, essentially, it's about producing and using language. If a child or any learner has problem learning and it is traced to dyslexia, then chances are such a child do not know whether to use the left or the right hand to write, and that makes it difficult for them to appreciate the writing. They also often confuse letters that look similar. So, for example, an M and a W would confuse such a child. A B and a D would confuse such a child because they are unable to appreciate. And even if you extend it to numbers of figures, a 6 and a 9 will confuse them. Or maybe a P and a Q might confuse them in terms of letters again. So they are unable to really appreciate and make good use of words or letters. And they would often mix capital and even small letters whilst learning, and even reverse some words, simple words like saw or was. They will easily reverse same because of the condition. So dyslexia makes it difficult for the child to learn how to read and appreciate. Often, some may be able to read, but they may not understand what they are reading, or even be able to read at all. And this is because they see things differently. They reason and process things differently as compared to other children who might be regular learners. So if your child or group of children you are attending to as a teacher have this challenge, learning difficulty called dyslexia, what do you do? In tackling this, you might want to teach the children to write using different techniques in writing. Maybe you can be writing in sand, or try to write with the body or on paper or something else that they can probably follow keenly and try to depict. So you might want to teach them the sounds of the letters well, and spend more time with them in order to teach them, because they may not appreciate it as other children would easily do. And you might want to find different interesting or exciting ways to try to explain things to them. So when teaching them how to read, you might want to show the word so that they see it, they say the word where they get to hear it, and then if possible help them try to trace that word that you are teaching them, then they get to feel it. So these are some of the ways you can tackle learning when you are with a child who has dyslexia, but never ask the child to read aloud in public. This has a way of impacting on their self-esteem when they have challenges learning. So that is dyslexia and how it affects children or people with learning difficulties, and how you can tackle same. And next learning difficulty I'd like to touch on is known as dyscalculia. And I already indicated in the previous video that this is a condition which makes it problematic or difficult for the learner to appreciate basic mathematics and use same. Thus, they have difficulty doing basic mathematics like addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. And they are not able to do the basic maths because of the condition. So essentially, it also impacts their way of reading and appreciating reading, and ultimately their understanding of the same. So for such a child, even reading time will be difficult for them, because when they see the clock, the letters, and the hands of the clock, the hour hand, the minute hand, and even the second hand can confuse them. So it will be like stars on earth. They are unable to really appreciate what is happening within the frame of the clock. So if a child has this difficulty, how do you help such a child? You might want to teach counting using simple rhymes like 1, 2, buckle my shoe. It helps them to appreciate the learning because there's a music tune to it, or there's a poetic element that helps them to recall what has been learned. You might also want to use pictures when teaching the numbers. Pictures they can easily appreciate, keep in mind, memorize, and recall in their learning. You can also teach the numbers by matching the numbers and the quantity it represents. So if you are teaching them, say, 2, you do something like this. It helps them know that, okay, 1, 2, or this is 5. They know that a full set of fingers on one hand represents 5. So by showing them something that represents what you are teaching, they are able to appreciate that. And if possible, you need to demonstrate mathematical concepts like the more or less, as in greater than or less than, greater than or less than. So once they get to appreciate it from this representation, it helps them to learn very well. So that is also on dyscalculia, which is a learning difficulty. The third one I'll touch in this video is the learning difficulty known as dyspraxia. And this is a condition whereby the child finds it difficult, or the learner finds it difficult to move or coordinate their movement. So it's simply difficulty with movement and coordination of same. So a child with such a learning difficulty have tough time with their motor coordination. They have problems, and they would often appear very clumsy. Chances are such a child with this learning difficulty would have poor handwriting. They will be slow at even dressing or tying their own shoelaces. It's difficult for them, and they might even find it very tough expressing themselves as they should. And it's all as a result of this. Chances are even learning how to sweep and clean, which are basic tasks children pick up as they grow, will be difficult for them. So this presents a learning challenge for a child with dyspraxia. So what do you do if a child has this difficulty? What you can do to help is establish a consistent routine to help the child keep track of what he or she has to do. Once there's a routine, there's a particular time, and there's a particular time of the day that they do something, it helps them to recall and to do it routinely. And if possible, you would always want to break down information or any instruction given to them. Thus, present the information in smaller chunks. When information is presented in bits, it helps them to learn them one at a time, and they don't get confused because they get so much information at the same time. Another thing you might want to do is you might want to change their activities often when they are learning. Avoid certain tedious tasks and let the child always repeat the instructions. So if the instructions are laborious, they are tedious, they would lose interest. So you should try to change them as often as possible, and you should help them appreciate it more by repeating the instructions you give them. All right, so this is the first part on the learning disabilities. I will do a second part video which tackles the rest of the conditions I mentioned earlier. I hope you had value from this video. Thank you for tuning in, and remember to subscribe. See you in the next video.